My name's Harry, and this is how my life took a turn I never saw coming. I took in a woman and her 2 daughters, treated her like a wife, and was ready to raise her kids as my own. We lived together for about 6 months, maybe a little longer, long enough that I could have proposed and made it official. But things didn't play out that way. One day I had to set up hidden cameras in my own house to uncover a shocking truth that left me looking like a gullible fool. That's where my story starts, but let me take you back to the beginning. After my first marriage ended in tragedy, not my fault but because cancer took my wife, I became a widower. That loss broke me. I shut myself off, buried myself in work, and let the world pass me by. For years, it was just me and my truck. I hauled freight across state lines, moving whatever needed to be moved. The routine was simple. Me, the steering wheel, the engine's rumble, and miles of highway. Social life? Didn't have one. I was always on the road and I didn't mind, or so I thought. I wasn't looking for anything new, but fate had other plans. It was a rainy evening, the kind where the downpour turns your windshield into a blurry mess, no matter how fast the wipers go. I was driving my empty rig home, worn out but focused, when I saw them on the roadside. A woman, probably in her early 30s, and 2 little girls, 6 and 8 I'd guess, huddled together, soaked through. They were waving, desperate for a ride. Most folks would have kept going. It was late, the weather was miserable, and they didn't look like they had much to their name. But something pulled at me. I eased the truck to a stop, rolled down the window and called out, "Get in, I'll give you a lift." They climbed into the cab, dripping wet and shivering. The woman said her name was Amanda. The younger girl was Lisa, the older one Ruby. They wore plain, worn clothes, nothing fancy, just practical stuff that couldn't stand up to the rain. I asked, "Where are you headed?" There was a beat of silence, a flicker of uncertainty in Amanda's eyes before she said, "We're not sure yet. We'd appreciate a ride to the city center." That threw me. No plan? In this storm, with 2 kids? I couldn't help myself. I started asking more. They'd been drifting, Amanda explained, traveling from town to town. It sounded more like wandering to me. No roots, no direction. They didn't have a place to stay, no shelter to call their own. I couldn't just drop them off downtown and leave them soaked like that. The girls especially got to me. They could get sick in that weather. So I dug a little deeper. "What about your husband?" I asked. Amanda looked away for a second, then said softly, "He's gone. Died a few years ago." That hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife had passed from cancer a few years back, and hearing Amanda was a widow too cut deep. We didn't know each other, but that shared grief felt like a thread tying us together. I didn't overthink it. I just acted. "Look, I've got a place nearby. It's warm, dry, and there's room. Why don't you stay the night? Get cleaned up, eat, figure things out tomorrow." They wavered. Naturally. Trusting a stranger isn't smart these days. Amanda glanced at my hand, saw the wedding band I still wore, and asked, "Won't your wife mind?" I swallowed hard and told her, "I'm a widower too. Haven't taken the ring off yet." That seemed to settle her nerves. After a quiet moment, she nodded and they agreed to come with me. When I brought Amanda, Lisa, and Ruby into my home that rainy night, I didn't know what to expect. But I couldn't just leave them dripping wet and shivering in my truck. My place wasn't anything fancy, just a small, tidy house I'd kept up since my wife passed. But it was warm and dry, and that's what mattered. As soon as we got inside, I showed them around. "Living room's here," I said, pointing to the worn but comfy couch. "Kitchen's through there, bathrooms down the hall. Make yourselves at home." They stood there hesitant, like they weren't sure they belonged. I grabbed some towels and a few old shirts of mine for them to change into. Nothing special, but it'd do the trick. Then I got to work in the kitchen, throwing together a simple dinner. Spaghetti, some garlic bread, and a salad. It wasn't much, but the girls' eyes lit up when I set the plates down. Amanda thanked me quietly, and we ate together at the table, the sound of forks clinking filling the silence. The next morning, I woke up early, half expecting them to be gone, but there they were, Lisa chattering away about something, Ruby sitting quietly, and Amanda sipping coffee I'd made. I didn't want them to leave, not yet. They looked worn out, like they'd been running on fumes for too long. "Why don't you stay a week?" I said, trying to sound casual. "Rest up, figure things out. The city's not a bad place to settle if you wanted to." Amanda frowned, unsure, but I kept going. "There's schools for the girls, parks, jobs. They deserve a shot at something stable, don't they?" I could tell she wasn't sold. She and the girls didn't seem keen on staying anywhere long, but after a bit of back and forth, she agreed. "Just a week," she said. That week, I showed them around town. It wasn't a big place, but it had what they'd need: a decent elementary school a few blocks away, a park with swings the girls could play on, and a couple of diners and shops where Amanda could maybe pick up work. I kept thinking about Lisa and Ruby. 2 kids like that shouldn't be drifting around with no education, no future. It gnawed at me. They were grateful, though. Amanda would nod and say thanks, Lisa would grin, and Ruby would give me a quiet, "Appreciate it." I could tell they weren't used to this kind of thing, someone looking out for them. A couple days in, I noticed the girls' shoes were falling apart, barely holding together after all that rain. So I took a trip to the store and came back with new sneakers for both of them. Bright blue for Lisa, a sensible gray pair for Ruby. Lisa squealed, bouncing around the living room, hugging me like I'd given her the moon. "Thank you, Harry, they're so cool," she chirped. Ruby was quieter, just a soft, "Thanks, Harry," but I saw her smile when she thought I wasn't looking. Amanda watched me, surprised. "You didn't have to do that," she said. I shrugged. They needed it. I don't know why, but having them around started to change something in me. After years of being alone, just me and the road, my life felt like it was warming up, like sunlight breaking through a long gray stretch. I wanted to help, to care for them. It made me feel whole again, like I had a purpose beyond hauling freight. I didn't ask anything of Amanda. No strings, no expectations. I just kept nudging them to stay longer, and little by little, she softened. She started cooking breakfast some mornings, tidying up the place. I even took some time off work, my first real break in years, to help them get settled. Amanda found a part-time gig waitressing at a diner downtown, and I made sure the girls got enrolled in school. That wasn't easy. They'd been bouncing around so much, living almost like nomads, that they were behind on everything. Reading, writing, basic math. They struggled. But I'm not the type to give up. After dinner, I'd sit with them at the kitchen table, helping them sound out words, scribble letters, add numbers. It wasn't a chore. I liked it. Lisa took to me fast. Within a month, she'd chatter away like we'd known each other forever. Ruby was different, more guarded. She'd listen, do the work, but there was a tension in her I couldn't quite figure out. It didn't cause trouble, though. She was just careful. Amanda and I got closer too, in our own way. Nothing physical. I didn't push for that. Didn't even think about it. I was helping because it felt right, not because I wanted something out of it. But we'd talk more, laugh a little. She'd tell me bits about their life before, though she kept it vague. I'd share stories from the road. The house started to feel alive again, meals on the table, the girls' voices bouncing off the walls. A month went by like that. Time flew by and my little house started to feel like a home again. Laughter bounced off the walls, the smell of Amanda's cooking filled the air, and it was easy to imagine this was the start of a real family. Little Lisa took to calling me Daddy Harry in her sweet, bubbly way. It melted my heart every time. Ruby stuck to just Harry, keeping her distance. But I didn't mind. Amanda seemed to bloom too. The exhaustion that used to weigh her down faded. Her face softened, and there was a spark in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Sometimes she'd kiss me on the cheek or wrap me in a warm hug, and it felt like we were building something good together. When my time off ended, I had to hit the road again, back to my trucking roots. Amanda and the girls stayed at the house, keeping things running. She'd go to her waitressing job, the girls went to school, and life settled into a rhythm. All those evenings I'd spent helping Lisa and Ruby catch up on schoolwork paid off. They weren't just getting by, they were doing well. One day, Ruby even came home with a high score on a math test. She was a smart kid, sharper than she let on. All she'd needed was some structure and someone to care. I was proud of her, proud of them both. Out on the road, I'd think about how lucky I'd gotten. Mile after mile, I'd picture coming home to them, building something solid, a real family. I started imagining getting closer to Amanda, maybe even proposing. The girls needed a dad, Amanda needed a steady partner, and me? I wanted that warm, cozy home life I'd lost years ago. Every time I came back from a haul, I'd bring something, flowers for Amanda, little gifts for the girls, clothes or toys they'd like. We'd have family nights, barbecues in the backyard, trips to the movies, simple stuff that made me feel alive again. I was like a man with a second wind. Lisa loved me openly. She'd throw her arms around me, squeezing tight, like she'd been starving for a father's affection. Ruby was still reserved, but I could tell she felt something too. Deep down, she appreciated the care, the stability I brought. I saw it in the way she'd linger when I helped her with homework or thank me for small things. Amanda grew closer too, or so I thought. We'd talk late into the night sometimes, and she'd smile more, laugh more. But there was this nagging feeling, a little itch I couldn't scratch. Something wasn't quite right. I pushed it aside, though, dreaming of the day I'd put a ring on her finger. Then came the day that turned everything upside down. I was picking Lisa up from school, and she climbed into the truck, her usual chatter replaced with a quiet worry. "Daddy Harry, I'm really scared," she said, her voice small. I frowned, trying to reassure her. "Hey, everything's fine, kiddo, what's wrong?" She hesitated, then spilled it. "When you're gone on your trips, a man comes to see Mommy." My stomach dropped. I tried to keep my face steady, but inside, I was reeling. Then she added, "He stays a while, and me and Ruby have to go outside or walk around town till evening. I don't like it." I felt the heat rise in my chest, a mix of shock and anger boiling up. A man coming to my house when I was away, kicking the girls out? I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my mind racing. Lisa looked up at me, her big eyes searching for comfort, but I didn't know what to say. All I knew was that whatever I'd been building with Amanda, whatever I'd hoped for, was suddenly on shaky ground. After Lisa dropped that bombshell on me, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't yell or storm home to confront Amanda. Not yet. The worst part? I'd already bought a ring. It was sitting in the glove box of my truck, tucked away for after my next haul. I'd been planning to propose, to make us a real family. But now, doubt gnawed at me. What if Lisa was just imagining things? She was a kid. Kids make up stories, right? Except she'd look so earnest, her little face creased with worry. I couldn't shake it. Instead of blowing up at Amanda, I decided to keep quiet and watch her closer. Over the next few days, I paid attention, really paid attention. Amanda was different, though it was subtle. Nothing big, just a shift in her eyes, a twitch of nervousness when I'd ask about her day, a forced smile that didn't quite reach. She was hiding something, and she wasn't good at it. That's when I made up my mind. I'd set up hidden cameras in the house. I'd go on my next trucking run like nothing was wrong, but this time I'd know exactly what was happening while I was gone. I waited till Amanda and the girls were out, her at work, them at school, then called up a couple of buddies who knew their way around tech. We rigged up small cameras around the house, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, a couple others in the hallways. Nothing in the bedrooms, that felt too far, but enough to see what was what. I linked them to my laptop, set up cloud storage for the footage, and tested it all out. It worked like a charm. Then I hit the road for a week-long haul, my stomach in knots the whole time. Whenever I could, I'd check the live feed, pulling over at truck stops, propping my laptop on the passenger seat. The recording saved online, but I wanted to see it as it happened. At first, it was just Amanda and the girls, and even that stung. Amanda was sharp with them, snapping, criticizing, her voice harsh in a way I'd never heard. Lisa and Ruby looked deflated, heads down, quieter than usual. It hurt to see, but it wasn't the worst of it. A few days in, my biggest fear came true. A man showed up. Some guy I'd never seen before waltzed into my house like he owned it. He ate my food, drank my beer, and, worst of all, stayed the night with Amanda. Meanwhile, the girls were either at school or stuck wandering outside till dark. Amanda acted like they were in the way, shooing them out so she could play house with this stranger. I sat there in my truck, staring at the screen, fury boiling up inside me. Shock turned to disappointment, then to a deep, aching pain. Jealousy over Amanda faded fast. What hit harder was the girls. I'd poured everything into giving Lisa and Ruby a shot at a good life. School, stability, a future where they could thrive. And now this. My hands shook as I clenched the steering wheel. A single tear slipped down my cheek, pooling under my left eye. I wiped it away, muttering to myself, I'm not letting this go. Whatever Amanda was up to, whatever game she was playing, I wasn't about to let it destroy what I'd built, or what I'd hoped to build, for those kids. I pulled my truck into the driveway, the engine rumbling to a stop. My hands were still tight on the wheel, my mind replaying those camera feeds over and over. I'd seen enough. Too much. When I walked into the house, Amanda was in the kitchen, humming like nothing was wrong. The girls were in the living room, Lisa coloring, Ruby flipping through a book. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Hey girls, why don't you head outside and play for a bit? I need to talk to your mom. Lisa grinned and darted out, but Ruby gave me a long look before following. She was sharp. She knew something was up. Once they were gone, I turned to Amanda, pulling out my phone with the screenshots already loaded. We need to talk, now. Amanda glanced up, her smile faltering. What's this about, Harry? I held up the phone, showing her a still of that man lounging on my couch, another of him in my kitchen, and one more, too close to her for my liking. Who is he, Amanda? And don't lie to me. I've got it all on video. Her face went pale, then red. She slammed the dish towel she'd been holding onto the counter. Are you serious? You put cameras in here? What the hell is wrong with you, Harry? You're crazy, spying on me like some paranoid freak. Crazy? I shot back, my voice rising despite myself. I trusted you. I let you into my home, treated you like family, and this is what I get? Some guy eating my food, sleeping in my house, while the girls are out wandering the streets? Explain it, Amanda. Who is he? Why are you cheating on me? And why are you treating Lisa and Ruby like they're a damn inconvenience? She froze for a second, then laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that cut right through me. The mask she'd worn for months slipped off, and I saw her, really saw her, for the first time. Cheating? Oh, Harry, you're such a fool. You're nobody to me. Nobody. That man? His name's Peter. He's my ex. Well, not so ex anymore. And guess what? He's the girl's real dad. They don't know it, but he is. I stared at her, my jaw tight. What? You said you were a widow. You told me. Yeah, I lied, she snapped, cutting me off. No dead husband, no tragic story. I made it up because it worked on you. You ate it up, didn't you? Poor lonely Harry, ready to play savior. Peter and I. We've got something messy, sure, but it's real. I love him. Always have. You? You're just the naive idiot who dreamed up this happy little family in your head. Her words hit like a punch, each one sinking deeper. So all of this, everything was a lie. You used me? She smirked, crossing her arms. What did you think, Harry? That I'd settle down with you? Play house forever? You're a truck driver with a sob story. I needed a place to crash, and you were dumb enough to offer. That's it. I felt the anger surge, hot and unstoppable. Get out, I said, my voice low and shaking. Pack your stuff and get the hell out of my house. Amanda rolled her eyes, storming off to grab her things. Fine by me. You're pathetic anyway, she muttered, loud enough to make sure I heard. Good luck finding someone else to buy your sad little act. As she yanked clothes into a bag, the front door creaked open. Lisa and Ruby stood there, wide-eyed. They'd heard everything. Lisa's face crumpled and she ran to me, tears streaming. Daddy, Harry, don't make us go. Please, I want to stay with you. Ruby didn't move, just stared, her hands clenched at her sides, her whole body rigid. Amanda whirled on them. What are you two doing? Get your stuff, now. We're leaving. I stepped forward, putting myself between her and the girls. They don't have to go anywhere. They can stay with me. They need someone who'll actually take care of them, not drag them around like baggage." Amanda laughed again, but it was shrill, unhinged. "You want them? Take them. I'm sick of them anyway. Always whining, always needing something. I'll come back for them when I feel like it." She grabbed her bag and shoved past me, slamming the door behind her. The room went quiet, except for Lisa's sobs. Then Ruby broke. She crumpled to the floor shaking, tears spilling out like a dam had burst. I knelt down, pulling Lisa close and reaching for Ruby. Hey, it's okay," I said, my voice cracking. "I've got you. Both of you." Ruby looked up at me, her eyes raw. "Daddy," she whispered, the first time she'd ever called me that. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. About her, about him. I was scared we'd lose you." Her voice broke, and she buried her face in her hands. "I didn't want you to go away. You're the only one who's ever cared." Hearing that, seeing her walls finally come down, hit me hard. My throat tightened, and I had to blink back my own tears. "Ruby, you don't have to apologize. None of this is your fault, and I'm not going anywhere, I promise. You and Lisa, you're not alone in this." Lisa clung to my arm, still crying, and Ruby leaned into me, her shoulders shaking. I wrapped them both up, holding tight. Amanda was gone and good riddance, but these girls, they were mine now, not by blood, but by something stronger. I wasn't about to let them down. The morning after Amanda stormed out, I woke up with a mission. I couldn't let Lisa and Ruby slip away. Not after everything. I grabbed my phone and called a lawyer I'd known from years back, a guy named Tom who'd helped me with some paperwork after my wife passed. "Tom, I need to know how to get custody of 2 girls," I said, pacing the kitchen. "Their mom's a mess, and they've got no one else." He sighed on the other end. "Harry, it's not simple. You're not related, and the mother's still in the picture. We'd need solid proof she's unfit. Abandonment, neglect, something concrete. Even then, it's a long shot." I hung up, my gut twisting, but I wasn't giving up. That afternoon, the front door banged open. Amanda was back, flanked by 2 cops. Her face was twisted with fury. "I'm taking my kids," she spat. "You can't keep them from me." Lisa and Ruby, who'd been playing in the living room, froze. Lisa started crying, clinging to my leg. "No, I don't want to go. Daddy Harry, don't let her." Ruby's eyes darted between me and Amanda, wide with panic. The cops looked uncomfortable. "Sir, she says they're her daughters." "They are," I admitted, keeping my voice steady. "But she's not fit to take them. She's been neglecting them, running around with some guy, leaving them on the streets half the time. I've got proof, videos, everything." Amanda lunged forward, jabbing a finger at me. "He's lying. He's a psycho who spied on me. They're my kids, and I'm their mother." The cops raised their hands, trying to calm things down. Lisa wailed louder, and Ruby grabbed my arm, shaking. "Please, Harry, don't let her take us," she whispered. It broke my heart. The officers exchanged a look. "We're sorting this out at the station," one said. "Everyone's coming with us." In the precinct, I laid it all out, how I'd taken them in, how Amanda had lied about being a widow, how she'd let this Peter guy into my house while the girls were pushed aside. I showed them the screenshots, the timestamps of the girls wandering outside. Amanda screamed over me, calling me delusional, but the cops weren't buying her act anymore. They ran her name through their system, and it didn't take long for the truth to spill out. She had a record: petty theft, vagrancy, a string of complaints from towns she'd drifted through. It painted a picture: a woman who couldn't, or wouldn't, give her kids a stable life. The officers stepped aside to talk, then came back with a decision. "The girls stay in custody for now," one said. "This goes to juvenile services. We'll investigate further." Lisa sobbed. "Daddy Harry, don't leave us." Ruby's face crumpled, but she didn't say anything, just looked at me like I was her last hope. I knelt down, hugging them tight. "I'll figure this out. I swear. You're not alone." Amanda glared, realizing the mess she was in. If they dug deeper, she'd lose her rights, maybe face fines or worse. She didn't stick around to find out. By the time the cops turned to her, she'd bolted, vanishing like she always did when things got tough. I called Tom again that night. She's gone, man. The girls are with the state now, and I'm scared they'll end up in a foster home. Help me fix this." He promised to dig into it, and I roped in a couple buddies, guys I trusted, to brainstorm with us. We found some angles: my stable job, my clean record, the footage proving Amanda's neglect. It wasn't a sure thing, but it was something. The next month and a half was a blur of legal wrangling. The girls were placed in a group home while the courts sorted it out. I visited them every chance I got, bringing books for Ruby, little crafts for Lisa. "Are you going to save us, Daddy Harry?" Lisa would ask, her eyes big and hopeful. Ruby wouldn't say much, but she'd hug me longer each time. I'd tell them, "I'm working on it. Just hang in there." Inside, I was terrified they'd slip through my fingers. The fight for Lisa and Ruby wasn't over when they went to the group home. It was just beginning. I threw everything I had into it. Tom, my lawyer, rallied my buddies, and we built a case that couldn't be ignored. We got statements from the girls' teachers, who'd seen how much they'd thrived with me, and neighbors who'd watched me step up while Amanda flaked out. It was a slog: court dates, paperwork, endless hoops to jump through, but I wasn't backing down. While all this was going on, I tracked down Amanda and Peter. An old friend, a former cop turned private detective, owed me a favor. He found them holed up in some run-down trailer a few towns over, living like they were in their own warped little world. They were a mess, wild-eyed, unpredictable, chasing some fantasy life I couldn't wrap my head around. I showed up, not to fight, but to bargain. "Help me get custody," I said. "Testify for me. Sign off on the girls. You don't even want them." Amanda smirked, and Peter scratched his chin. "What's in it for us?" he asked. "Money," I said, jaw tight. "After the court's done, you'll get paid." They agreed, more interested in cash than their own kids. The final hearing came, and I brought them in. Amanda and Peter stood there looking bored and told the judge they didn't want Lisa and Ruby, said I was the better fit. It wasn't heartfelt. It was a transaction. The legal hurdles kept coming: custody laws, background checks, a mountain of red tape. But with Tom and my crew, we powered through. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. Permanent custody. The girls were mine. After it was over, I pulled Amanda aside. I had to know. "Why'd you do it?" I asked, my voice steady but sharp. "If you don't care about the girls, why'd you call the cops after I kicked you out?" She shrugged, a weird glint in her eye. "I don't know, Harry. I live by my mood. Back then I wanted to screw you over. Now, I feel free. That's all that matters." I pressed her. "Was the life I gave you so bad? Better than drifting around, scraping by?" She laughed, a hollow, jagged sound. "It was nice, sure, perfect even. But it's not me. I don't want some normal life other people cooked up. I make my own rules." I stared at her, realizing she wasn't just selfish. She was unhinged. There was no reasoning with someone like that. I walked away, done with her for good. The day I picked Lisa and Ruby up from the group home was the best of my life. Lisa ran into my arms yelling, "Daddy!" Ruby hugged me tight, whispering, "Thank you." I got them home, and from then on, I made sure they had everything they deserved. I quit the long-haul trucking gig, found a local job at a warehouse. No more weeks away. I was there for them every day, helping with homework, cooking dinner, taking them to the park. They blossomed. Ruby opened up, trusting me more, her quiet shell cracking bit by bit. Lisa's chatter filled the house with light. They'd thank me all the time, "We love you, Daddy," and pitch in with chores, eager to grow and learn. Their grades shot up, and I couldn't have been prouder. Then, one summer, life threw me another curveball, a good one. At a street food festival, I met Caitlin. She lived a few blocks over, a single woman with a big smile and a goofy Labrador named Max. The girls took to her right away, giggling as Max licked their faces. Caitlin and I hit it off too. Easy conversations, shared laughs. Before long, we were dating. She fit into our little family like she'd always been there. Lisa and Ruby adored her and Max, and Caitlin loved them back, fierce and genuine. She loved me too, and I felt the same. It was a happy ending I hadn't seen coming. Looking back, I realized the hardest, saddest moments, like losing my first wife, like Amanda's betrayal, led me here. One night, I stepped outside, staring up at the stars. I thought of my wife, gone too soon, and whispered, "Thank you. You taught me how to love, how to be kind." It got me through. I smiled, feeling her warmth in the quiet. Lisa, Ruby, Caitlin, they were my family now. Proof that even the roughest roads can take you somewhere beautiful. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.